Hello and welcome to Full Disclosure with me, James O'Brien, a podcast series that somehow, despite now moving well into the later stages, still retains its charm as an opportunity for me to spend a bit of time with people that I've always wanted to meet, which is why comedy legend Katherine Ryan is here today. I have seen you on stage, but we haven't met.
We have.
When?
We did a show
no, you're right,
with
we
Russell
did.
Kane.
But we didn't speak to each other at all. And this is going back a while, and I was quite in awe of you.
You were not.
Well, Janet Street Porter was there. No one in the room knew who I was, and you were in that first flush of proper celebrity and proper fame. So I felt a little bit intimidated.
That's kind of you to say, but I don't believe you. And I definitely knew who you were.
Did you?
And we did spoke. Yeah, because I really like all the drivers who take me to fancy places. They get very upset. They listen to your show,
yes,
and they get upset.
Every single one of them. Yes.
I love it.
Occasional.
I love the man during the sugar tax who called in and he was like, well, I've sorted it. I know what to do. I'm just not going to buy sugar then. And you were like, yeah, that's the point. And he was like, I've outsmarted the sugar tax.
You're giving away my secrets.
Great show.
Yes, good luck with that. Thank you. Begin at the beginning. I know that your dad moved to Canada from Ireland, and I know that in the show that's going to be on Netflix, hopefully by the time this is broadcast, you talk a little bit about Irish roots, and is it significant? Is it a big part of who you are? Because I like this transatlantic identity that you've got, and I just wonder whether it's coincidental or whether it is born of your background.
Well, I know that the Irish are traditionally storytellers, and I did appreciate having a dad from somewhere else growing up, because I'm from a small town in Canada where if you were not from that town, it was super fancy. Little do they know, my dad, growing up without shoes in County Cork, was not super fancy, but they were like...
It had an exoticism
he's
to
Italian.
It.
Yeah, it was very exotic and tall. And I always had, I knew that there was a world beyond my small town. And it wasn't a super exciting one. We would just go to fields and visit my Nana's house and stuff. But I always had a greater sense of the world than I think some North Americans in a small town do. I mean, a lot of them don't have passports.
Because I always distinguish between Canada and America, but is that not the right? I mean, is it just as potentially parochial as an American small town?
Yeah, it absolutely can be parts of it. And where I'm from in Canada is quite near to America. Anyway, almost Detroit. But they can be just as fascist over there. We got a lot of similar problems. A lot of them rallied behind that crackhead mayor who has
I remember him.
Passed.
Yes, is he no longer with us?
He died.
That's a great loss to political sketch writers, and no doubt to his family as well. That was an astonishing... Anyway, we did...
But his brother is
that's what I read.
A premier now or something. He's a bad guy. So, I mean, yeah, Canada's not that different to America right now.
Did you get back often? Now do you get back often?
No, I like to do the Just for Laughs Festival in Montreal. That's a really great stand-up.
But that, if you were to judge Canada by the Montreal Festival, it would be like judging Scotland by the Edinburgh Festival.
Yeah.
Right? It's not illustrative of any broader truths.
No. But I do love visiting Canada. I got to visit this year because I filmed Who Do You Think You Are in January. And I said, January in Canada? Are you sure? And they were like, yeah, let's go. But I got to see some of the really beautiful parts. I am proud to be Canadian. I love being from there. But I don't visit. And that is, A, because my family lived there.
Yes.
And B, because I really like to work all the time. And I just don't think that I would be doing the amount of stand-up touring in Canada if I had stayed.
You know, well, that probably explains why you're here, but we've jumped forward a little bit. So you had a consciousness of being a little bit different growing up, something that I sense you sort of revelled in, and that came out at school, did you?
Yeah, I always say I'm the only child in the history of the world who believed my mother when she said, Katherine, the bullies are just jealous. I was like, girl, I know. Like, I just really thought that if they would write mean letters about me, there's a newspaper where they put me on the cover and said I looked like a camel, which is not untrue. I mean, it's a pretty decent read with the eyelashes and the long face and stuff. I mean, fair play. But
what age was this? When did you start getting bullied?
It wasn't that bad. I mean,
people always say that. I mean, I don't know. Why would you mention it so early on if it wasn't that bad?
Because I liked it, because it made me go, "Ooh, I'm famous."
Right.
I thought like
infamy being better than ambivalence.
Right, and I knew very early on that not everyone would like you.
And so again, what sort of age was this, roughly?
Well, I was super cool in primary school. I went to an all French school. My parents just did that, like as a prank. They didn't speak French. I know, yeah. They just sent me to a French school, and I was pretty cool there. And I was
exotic there as well as the only non-French speaker.
Yeah,
presumably briefly, you actually picked up a bit of the lingo before you left.
Right. And I was really political. I found this old video where we would do a lot of oration in French school. They have a speech contest. It's the big thing that they do at the end of the year in the French system. I don't know why that is, but mine were always kind of stand-up or political. And there was one that was about kissing and how you shouldn't make your children kiss all the relatives who come to the house and the babysitter. It was des baisers. It was like des baisers, encore des baisers, un gros baiser mouillé de la voisine d'à côté. And I just kept railing off like all these people I didn't want to kiss in a real Shania Twain, like French Canadian accent.
And
then when I went to high school, it wasn't cool to be academic anymore, and you should be sporty. And it was a different school system, so I didn't have as many friends. And I had a really weird gap in between my teeth. And my autumn jacket was from the Gap. My mom wouldn't let me change it.
But they knitted those two things together, did they?
It said Gap across the back.
Oh, no.
Like very branded.
And you had a gap. And
really
did you say
big.
to your mum, this is not going to work, Mum?
Right. And she's like, well, you chose that jacket.
We sent you to a French school for a reason. You should be tough enough to deal with this.
Yeah.
What's going on? Do you remember the first time it happened? First time someone had a pop at you? Because I appreciate, we grow thick skins and what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. But you were a child and people were mean to you.
It just never bothered me. I always thought, my mom said, if we all liked the same thing, we'd all be married to your father. I was like, that's true. And I and she didn't want to be married to him either.
No.
She wasn't for long. But I just sort of always knew that if you stepped outside of normalcy, then you were vulnerable to be targeted. And I always knew I was right.
Fair enough.
I was just like, we'll see.
Yes. So you had a sense of destiny, or would that be too pompous a way of putting it? You knew you wouldn't be sticking around there forever?
I definitely knew I wouldn't be sticking around there forever. And I also knew that I didn't want to turn out like my mom. I love my mom very much, but she is definitely a frustrated performer.
Yes.
And the resentment that comes from that. I remember my mom just always with a cigarette and a glass of scotch. She's very cabaret.
Yes.
But she'd just be like,
this is in the show, isn't it?
It is, but she really is like that.
Yes.
She'd be like, I've been chained to a desk for 25 years. She always had this, she was annoyed that she played it safe.
Okay.
And I would never want to be that way, so.
Could you have stepped into normalcy if you'd wanted to? Could you have towed the line? Could you have become a sort of a Stepford student?
Oh, I tried.
Oh, did you?
I think I tried as hard as you could try.
Okay, just didn't happen.
I went to Hooters, which I felt was women university. I also went to university.
Hooters, for our English
Yeah.
consumers, is a restaurant chain where the waitresses on what's that posh French word for boobs? I can never remember what it is.
Oh, posh French words.
Embot. When I was a gossip columnist, this is what we had to write when we were talking about.
They didn't teach me that in primary.
They didn't teach you this in Hooters either. Well, it's a posh word for Hooters. The name is not a accident, is it? And it's quite a big part of the waitresses.
But we don't get them out.
No, I know that.
It's just a vest. It's like but in America and in Canada, I think Hooters girls, it's an interesting archetype because they're like cheerleaders.
Yes.
You're meant to be very friendly, very youthful, non-threatening.
Okay.
Really natural looking, almost like someone's mother. I think the breasts come into like, like, I just want to listen to your dumb stories. That's what it was about. And hula hooping. I did a lot of hula hooping.
And this was a conscious attempt to fit in?
I just admired those women.
Yeah.
My mom is and was very beautiful.
Right.
My dad's like really Irish and really like big. And I look more like my dad. But I just thought that my life would be easier if I was like the girls in my school who were quiet and friendly and well-liked.
Gosh.
I didn't want to be disruptive or
really?
No.
This surprises me.
I really didn't.
So you didn't diffuse, you didn't become a clown in order to win friends. The cliched story.
That doesn't work for girls.
Better than I. Does it not? Why not? Because you've got a different set of standards that you're supposed to be aspiring to.
I think that might be changing now.
Yes, I hope so.
And I've seen the movie Booksmart.
Yes,
have you taken your daughter?
Yeah, I have taken my 13.
Yeah. And I love thinking that those smart young women are valued in a different way than we were. But it was different.
Well, it's also how they value themselves. For people who haven't seen the film, it's a a gay girl and her best friend, but that is just incidental to the way the plot unfolds, even though it's intrinsic. It's not
Right.
a film about being gay. It's a film about being young. And it's not even a film about being young or female. It's a film about being young and real, isn't it?
Right. And all the kids in the film are so smart.
Yes.
Sort of like the way Clueless went for my generation didn't want you to be ditzy. They were ditzy, but really they're actually quite smart.
And Legally Blonde, actually, if you think about it.
So I like that. But no, I
But
just
not
thought,
not in time for you. So you get to secondary, you get to high school, and being clever is not cool.
some clever people were cool. I just wasn't. The way that I was never a good thing.
So when did you realise you were funny then? If partly perhaps in the lycée at the French school when you were doing your I don't want to kiss my grandmother with a
Yeah.
staff type stuff.
Right. My family thought I was funny, and
Okay.
my sisters thought I was funny. I had a few close friends. You've always got a best friend who thinks you're funny. I would make, my mother gave me a video camera, a little.
Yeah, the
VHS.
size of a bungalow.
Yeah,
back
like
then.
Betamax. No, so I'd make sketches with my sisters when I was from 9. I had
Okay.
a camera. I still have those. I dressed my sister up as Hitler for a school project. Not,
You didn't
in
send it to
favor
school.
of Nazism. Oh, yep.
It wasn't just for the sketch. You actually sent us to school dressed as Hitler.
No.
Oh,
I
good.
presented the film that I'd
Right.
made
With your sister in it as Hitler.
of my sister being like, I'm preparing to invade Belgium, Holland, France, like as Hitler.
That's just like, what's the Mel Brooks thing?
Producers.
Yeah, it's just like that, really,
I
isn't it?
felt that way.
Yeah.
My teacher disagreed.
What happened?
I got in trouble. He said it wasn't appropriate for school. He was German, actually, and they, Mr. Kier, that was his name. He didn't like me.
No, I can't think why. So, at what point did you begin to think that that kind of stuff actually offered maybe not just a way out of Canada, but a future, a kind of career, or whatever you want to call it?
Not until very recently. I came to the UK because my boyfriend at the time wanted to do comedy.
Right, he was Canadian.
Sometimes I say he's British. I like to keep it
A bit of
murky
mystique.
with
I
him.
have no interest in dismantling
No,
your
I know.
mystique, Katherine.
I just forget what I said the last time.
Fair
He's
enough.
Korean.
So he was a guy.
And he wanted to come and be a comedian, which is,
What?
he's very funny, but it's dark the way it worked out, isn't it?
It's not. It's a bit like Leroy in Fame.
Yeah.
Didn't he accompany someone to the audition, and then he ended up getting into the New York
Right.
School of Performing Arts, and we never heard of Leroy's friend again. So it is with your ex-boyfriend.
Yeah, I don't feel great about that. The graveyard of my exes.
So had you never done stand-up before you came here with him? You were just coming as a relationship decision?
I had done it a couple
I
times.
thought so.
met him in a stand-up
Yeah,
comedy club.
sure.
Yeah, but
So
I wasn't earning money from it. I did it as a hobby.
Wasn't an ambition then at that point? Or a
No.
dream even? It was just something fun to do
Right.
that you enjoyed?
Like a Zumba class,
And he thought he was going to be Seinfeld or something like that? Or
I suppose. Well, he wanted to do comedy, and he was right that the UK is a great place to do comedy. And then I worked in an office when I moved here. I had some friends at the office who thought I was funny. The British sense of humor was very welcoming straight away. I
Yes.
thought, what is this?
How would
They call it banter?
you typify that idea of taking the mickey out of people,
Just everyone was
bouncing
funny.
off each other?
Right.
And is that not normal? I mean, is that not what would have happened in a Canadian office?
Maybe in some Canadian offices. That certainly wasn't my experience,
Okay.
though. Like, people were
And nothing
offended.
sacred either, is it? That's quite a British approach to that sort of workplace
That's it.
or banter humour.
Yeah, the funniest people that I met, I think, up until that point in my life, were in that office in Melbourne.
Mine were in menswear. The funniest people I ever met we were selling suits with. They used
Yeah.
the jokes, the laughs you could have. Because you're all day and you're often bored.
Mm-hmm.
And so you discover very quickly who you're simpatico with and who you're not.
Right.
And if you're making people that you find funny laugh, you begin to realise that you're probably pretty funny yourself.
Maybe that's it.
Hmm.
Maybe it was the confidence that I got from making that.
So how did the trajectories work? And don't hold back. So the boyfriend and you.
Oh, no.
No, come on.
Well,
How quickly did things...
not too quickly. So it was difficult for me in the beginning. I was working in an office, still doing comedy, only because I liked to do
And
that.
what were you doing? Open mic nights or pubs? Or
I would do pubs, the Comedy Cafe, and the King's
Okay.
Head, of places like that. And that's when I met a lot of the people who are still my friends and my peers now. Sarah Pascoe.
Yes.
She was one of the first people that I met in comedy. And then I did new act competitions. That's a really good way
Yes.
to get gigs, to get stage time. my first new act competition. I was runner-up with Sean Walsh.
Wow.
Josh Whitcomb was in that as well. Mike Wozniak. Sarah Pascoe was in that. Who else? Like a lot of people. It's like
pedigree, isn't it?
I know, it's like a university. You grow up
Sure.
with the same people. And then my daughter was born in 2009. And then I just never went back to the office. I took maternity leave. And I realized that I would earn less going back to the office than daycare costs to look after my daughter.
Yeah, that's a familiar
and I thought, well,
discovery.
Yeah.
Okay, because what intrigues me now is you describe it almost as having happened by accident, and yet I don't know why. I've always had an image of you as being quite driven.
I'm driven. I was a good waitress, and I was good in the office at sales, and I don't...
What were you selling?
Fashion subscriptions. It was business to business. It's like a news, contacts, and events service.
Okay.
Yeah. But, I like talking to people and going to the events and selling the subscription service.
But comedians always mock comedians who had a plan. I've encountered this a bit. They take but you clearly didn't have a plan. You didn't have a master plan or anything like that.
I still don't have one. I don't understand when people say that, oh, wow, you're on too many things, or you work too hard. It's like,
no, but that's what I'm kind of. That's what I'm clumsily driving at. Is how you give an impression of it having happened by accident, and yet you've got a very Protestant work ethic. You've got a very.
I won't tell my daddy.
That they don't fit. How can you have such a strong work ethic while also give the impression that the comedy career happened partly by accident?
Well, after my daughter was born, I did take it more seriously.
Because you needed to support her.
Right.
How quickly after your daughter being born were you on your own with her?
I felt that I was
pretty
doing
much
the
from the
lion's
start.
share of things,
Okay.
yeah.
And
but then I was on my own. Well, I was never on my own. I got straight into another relationship, which I don't recommend.
You know what I meant when I said on you. I meant the dad wasn't playing a significant part in those early days.
He is in her life, and he sees her all the time.
Okay.
But in terms of financially supporting her, that has always been on me.
How come? Just
because I don't know. Because she fell out of me, and then I had to feed her. I don't know what to say. Like, there was rent due, so I paid it.
Yeah, but you know that there's laws in place and authorities in place, and you can pursue these matters if you're so minded through all sorts of sort of bureaucratic.
There are ways to get around them too, but also,
okay.
I mean,
I don't want to pry.
No, you're not. I mean, I think this is an issue.
Although, in fact, I'm saying to Katherine Ryan, I don't want to pry. When I've seen your stage show,
there's no prying,
it strikes me as a little bit unlikely.
It's difficult because I always want to tell my truth without encroaching on anyone else's like privacy.
Yes.
However, issues like that are difficult to talk about because I think as the mother, certainly, you are expected to carry yourself with a stoicism about these things. You can't ever deviate from like, we're just great. Everything's fine. There are things that I wish had gone differently, but also I feel very blessed in the way that things have gone. They might not be exactly the way I wanted, but I think all that I can do is provide like a great platform for my daughter and her father to always have a healthy relationship. Yes. I think that he loves her so much, and girls who love their dads choose good men. Unless they're lesbians, finger crossed. I really hope she is one. But we don't know. It's too early to tell.
It's not far, not long to go, probably. But
I think all the little ones will be quite gender,
the research suggests they are. So my oldest is a bit older than yours, and certainly the way their friends talk about these matters bears no. And admittedly, I went to an all-boys Catholic monastic boarding school, so we were unlikely to have a very fluid. But even if I hadn't gone to a school like that, the way that the young people today talk about sexuality and even gender is utterly unrecognizable.
It's amazing. They don't even take for granted. Like, I'm wearing these like period pants right now. Sorry,
that's okay.
But they're
full disclosure.
Yeah, they're so good, and they just look like regular pants, and you reuse them. I want to tell you this because how many daughters have you got?
2.
Okay, so they never have to use tampons or pads ever again.
Is this true?
Yes, they're called Thinks with an X on the end. There are different brands, but the ones I use. And they're regular pants. They look like pants. They wash like pants. They're not like a nappy. They're incredible.
Oh, yeah.
And all I do is talk about them all day because no one believes.
Have you got a sponsorship?
No,
because
but
you should have. This is an appalling missed opportunity. You could be the face of.
I feel
what are they called again?
Thinks.
Thinks.
The face of Thinks. I could be the vagina of Thinks. I could be the uterus. But what I like about it is that there's no waste, and I'm so like it moved me almost to tears that I thought, oh, my daughter will never have
pass this on to
leaks or whatever. Anyway, she said to me about them, because, I go on about things. She said, can boys wear them?
Oh, wow.
And I said, yeah, if they want to. And she said, no, I mean, like, trans boys who were born women, would they still have their period and they would wear them? And I was like, yeah.
And again, there'll be people watching this
Yeah.
who think, what? But for her, and for the people of the same age that I know, that's not even a thing. It's just
Right.
the most natural conversation in the world. This is why you mentioned Booksmart as well. There is
so
a sense
good.
of this pendulum really swinging, but also the fury and the resistance of older generations and certain types of people. So we're back to 2009. You've just had the baby.
Sorry about, the detour about my period.
I'm cool.
Okay.
It's I'm not a product of an all boys Catholic monastic boarding school in the middle of North Yorkshire,
No.
where we got our sex education off a man in a dress who'd taken a vow of celibacy. I'm not a product.
Sounds normal.
I'm cool. How long did you not work for then when your little one was born?
I did a gig when she was 21 days old.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah. Only because I booked it before she was born, and I didn't consider that it might be difficult to bring a baby to Latitude Festival.
And how was it?
It was not that difficult. I dressed her in yellow, which you shouldn't do because that attracts bugs, and she had all these little bugs flying onto her.
Pollinating her.
I've learned that.
Yes.
But I feel somewhat remorseful about the way that I raised Violet, only because I had so little, and I was so young, really. I know 25 is not that young.
Oh, it is.
But now I feel that I would have done so many things differently.
Right. I presume all parents feel like that.
Yeah.
Don't they? The ones that don't are probably sociopaths.
Right. But there are a lot of great things too.
Yes.
I didn't really have a phone. I didn't really have anything
So
to
you were
do
skint.
or anywhere to go.
there's not to put too fine a point on it.
Yeah. Definitely not comfortable.
Okay.
Sometimes
scared?
you can.
I mean,
Super scared.
of the financial situation. I've been lying awake at night. How am I going to pay the bills? Type skint.
Yes, but I always
Okay.
did pay them.
Sure.
And I thought, I've spoken about this before, but I'm grateful for that time, because I think when I had nothing is when I realized I had everything.
Yes.
And I went, oh, you have mental health. I've always
Yes.
had really great mental health. I mean, sounds like something a crazy person might. But I feel I don't really get too anxious, and I
Okay.
am capable of, doing that old-fashioned thing of pulling up my socks and moving forward.
Yes.
I always knew that I could go back to waitressing. I had skills. I was young. I knew that everything was going to be fine, and everything was fine in the end.
Yes. And it is what created that. You've talked about it as being more like a friendship than a mother-daughter relationship. So it was you two against the world. That was
Right. I
How
was
it
with
felt?
her all day, every day. Taught her sign language so that she could be my friend.
So after you did the 21-day-old gig, how big was the gap before the next time you were on
That
stage?
I don't remember, but I definitely didn't bring her the next time.
But were you in the swing of it while most people would still have been on maternity leave?
Yeah,
Because you had to be.
right. I think maybe when she was 30 days old exactly, I went to the Comedy Store for the Funny Women Awards. I was
Right.
presenting the next winner of that. I just got back into the swing thing. And I think having children gives you a sense of great purpose.
And how good did you think you were at this point? Because you've clearly made a decision to give it a whirl. Violet's arrival notwithstanding, even if she hadn't come along, you probably would have thought, well, I should probably have a proper go at this.
I mean, I thought I was great. I thought it was a lot better then than I think I am now. I had a lot of exuberance and confidence when I was young, but
And audiences always liked you, pretty much.
or they didn't.
Yes.
I've always been quite polarizing, but that's fine. I always did okay.
And like the colleagues in the office, when you're getting professional respect from people like Josh Widdicombe or Sarah Pascoe, that gives you an indication that perhaps you are a bit more than an also-ran or
Well, I knew that I could tell early on that the people who did well in comedy were the ones who had an authentic voice.
Okay.
And I definitely was different. And I thought, well, I think being different is going to be good over here. And the more that a compere would say, sorry, it's a woman, and everyone would go, oh.
Yeah.
I really liked that.
Did you?
Yeah, I
How
was
come?
like, oh, we'll see.
Because
I
it was
thought-
like a challenge.
Yeah, I thought if you could win people around, that was good. And I felt comfortable being different, I think.
And that's why you talk very openly and freely about your domestic situation on stage.
Yeah.
Because it is a bit different. And I love the stuff you do about how if you were a man, then you'd be getting firework displays and people would be hitting gongs at your magnificent ability to juggle all of these. But if you're a woman, it's like, yeah.
I see that
And
every day. Yeah.
still.
Women. There was a doctor who tweeted the other day, and I clicked on the tweet and I went down into a rabbit hole trying to figure out if she was being funny or not. And she said, "I've got to go to work. I feel so guilty. My husband's putting the children to bed." And I was like, I had to leave it in the end.
Yes, probably just as well. But it is. I think we're all. I mean, men more than women probably. Is that there is this weird sense that you should still be a provider, even if you're with someone who also works, and then if you're with a woman who also works, you both accidentally fall into the thing of thinking that domestic duties are yours, even though you've now got a job. For a single mother, it's sort of the worst of both worlds. You've got to go out and do the supporting, but it's not even an accident that you've also got 100% responsibility for the domestic side of this, because there's nobody else there to do it.
But that is the best of both worlds, because I like working lots, and I really do like.
But you know what I meant. I didn't mean
house.
it was a torture or a sentence. It's just how society looks at you, which is a big thing for what you talk about.
There's no one to get angry at when you're a single mother, though. So that is the benefit of it. But society, definitely think that you'll find somebody. Jerry Halliwell said to me, every pot has a lid. And I said, no, I'm not interested. I'm a wok. Sizzling away.
What does that mean?
She just said, I'll set you up with someone. She's a lovely woman. And I was like,
yeah,
no,
I'm
thanks.
sure she is. Every pot has a lid.
Yeah, I thought.
Is that her own, do you think? Or is that something that she's picked up off a fortune cookie? Or
I think a lot of people feel that way. They think that you're telling a lie if you say that you're happy being alone.
And yet you do talk a lot about not wanting a partner, but you haven't taken a vow of celibacy or anything like that, or committed to a life of loneliness. It's a weird one, because it's almost like an example of absolutism, isn't it? You either have to be 100% certain that you want to be on your own, or you have to be 100% pursuing the idea that every pot has a lid. You're more nuanced than that.
Sure.
You are cool being single, but equally, I'd sensed, it's a while since I saw Glittering, but you do talk about wanting to be with someone as well.
Well, I've had boyfriends.
Yes.
I can't stop falling in love.
With inappropriate boyfriends.
Well, I've been good. Do you know, I labeled myself as really liking trash men for a while.
Yes, I remember.
And I think that I've come out far enough that that's not true anymore.
Okay.
And the more I say it, it's not really fair to myself anymore.
Or them.
It's fair to some of them, but No, I've had 2 good boyfriends now, at least, I can say, that I'm still very good friends with. And so I do like romantic love, and I fancy men.
Yes, of course.
I wish, that weren't the case, but it is.
Because life would be a lot easier.
Well, just because they have historically been liabilities for me, James.
I can appreciate that. I can understand, but it's not an area of life that you can have any control over, is it?
No.
Whatever it is that floats your boat.
But I'm very good friends with an incredible author, Emily Dean, and she's also on Frank Skinner's radio show, and she's on a football program.
Frank was on last week's Full Disclosure, I think,
there you
or the
go.
one before. So there's a family feeling that's emerging
Good.
at the moment. Well, why'd you mention that?
Was he speaking about Emily Dean?
But no, he didn't. I knew Emily
should.
Dean many years ago when she was in PR and I was a showbiz journalist.
Oh, right.
All these tentacles.
Oh, yeah.
That are coming together. It's spooky, isn't it?
Well, she's my very favorite person. And
why'd you mention her when we're having a conversation about romance?
Because, well, I wish that Emily and I could be together, but we both like men. But she has been so transformative for me, because she bought a flat at the same time I bought a flat. And I saw her flat, and it was so beautiful. And Emily's so well-read and so smart. And when she and I get invited to parties, we don't have plus ones. We're like ingenues, we bring the fun, we bring the glamour, we've got great shoes, we've got rose gold kitchens. And she talks about her auntie Lynn, who was a pop star in the 70s, 80s. And Lynn was this glamorous woman who lived in a big house next to her family home. And she said, "Darling, I bought this house for myself, so no man can tell me what to do in it." And I thought, oh, Auntie Lynn. So we do things sometimes, and Emily will say, "That's a bit Auntie Lynn."
Oh, that's lovely. So a sort of icon, a feminist icon, for want of a slightly less magazine-y flavoured phrase.
She really was. And she had these Hollywood boyfriends.
Yes.
I think she might have dated Ringo Starr for a bit.
Gosh.
Don't quote me on that, but I mean, I think it's true.
Yeah.
And she just sort of didn't need them. And I know that men have different struggles, and they have mental health conversations that need to be had, and feelings of inadequacy, and this anxiety about providing. I understand that when it comes to men, but this idea that our value is based on whether or not we need them
Yes.
That's what I reject. It's like, can't we just all get to a true place of equality where we enjoy each other, but it's not like, oh, I really need you, because for so long you did need one. You weren't allowed to carry a passport, open a bank account, or buy a house without the signature of a man.
Even in the 70s.
Right.
It's only living memory. When my mum got married, she wouldn't have been allowed to get a mortgage without her husband or her father signing the papers for her. And yet people presumably don't believe you, because we're still living in a world where if a man is on his own, it's changing though with these. It's quite a Canadian thing, isn't it? These incels, these men.
Incels are Canadian.
Well, I think the most famous murderous incel was Canadian, so you're going to have to own a bit of it. These are men who cannot get partners and end up going.
Just kill a bunch of women in a technical center.
Yes, to go tonto as a result. So that possibly complicates the theory that I'm about to explore with you. The point was, a man is on his own because he's chosen to be. And hey, he's probably playing the field anyway. And he's got a girl in every port.
Bachelor.
A girl is a spinster. She's on her own because she can't find a man. Whereas what I thought when I saw your stage show was that I hadn't properly contemplated the idea of someone who would be happy in a relationship but isn't going to compromise, is what I came away with. Is that right? Is that fair? I'm not going to just marry you because otherwise I won't get married at all, or I'm not going to go out with you because otherwise I won't have a boyfriend. I'll go out with you if you're worthy of me.
Right.
Is that right?
Because I've compromised a lot before. I'd say, you could get really clinical about it. I probably have trauma about now my eye's twitching. It's fine. It's all fine. But yeah.
But you mean abusive boyfriends or just
not really.
dickheads?
I mean, well, dickhead now borders on abusive in certain ways. I've never been punched in the face.
Sure.
So.
That's great on that bombshell.
But again, I don't want to sound like I'm not in touch with.
I understand.
Because I don't disagree with these young people who are saying, this is coercive, controlling behavior. This is abusive narcissism. I see a lot of older actresses who, when the whole Me Too campaign started, they're like,
one of the worst
what
things.
are these young dames complaining about?
Yeah,
it's like,
I know. I get that on the phone-in show when you get, well, I used to like having my ass pinched. It was a compliment. And you think, well, I can't tell you that you didn't because it's your ass.
Yeah, yeah.
But you didn't.
Well, my friend Jeff Norcott, do you know him? He and I came up with 70s Day at work. And it's like a bank holiday. It's not mandatory to come into the office.
Right.
You can stay home if you like and you can get full pay. But if you want to come in on 70s Day, anything goes.
Oh, wow.
You can smoke. You can spank each other's like bums or whatever used to go on. You can make jokes, lewd jokes on 70s Day.
It should be a TV show, shouldn't it? It should be like a reality show.
Yeah, why not?
Speaking of TV, let's hop back into the professional. Although, I mean, you're very much someone whose professional and personal lives are, to say the least, intertwined, aren't they?
I'm pretty good at like separating little bits, though.
In your head, you are, but on stage, you're giving a lot of yourself to the audience. I appreciate that you hold back stuff, but some people would be surprised that you talk about your daughter by name. I think she was on stage at the Garrick.
She likes to go on stage and sing.
What's not to like about that? So, how old was Violet when things went bonkers for you work-wise? Because it happened quite quickly, didn't it? And I know it's often quite insulting to say you were an overnight success, and you go, I did 25 years at the coalface. I'm not suggesting you're an overnight success, but you went from doing open mics and talent shows.
Yeah.
Because it's only 10 years ago, so it obviously went pretty quickly because you're a very familiar face now.
Well, that's kind of you to say. I mean, I keep changing my face, so the fact that you recognize it. I think, it wasn't overnight for me at all, but I know it looks that way. I first did TV in this country in 2012, 8 out of 10 Cats.
Yes.
And then there was never a point when it went bonkers. I've never felt comfortable. I've never felt like, oh, that's fine now.
You don't even now feel you're over the line, as it were. I'm going to be okay. You're still worried if there's a gap in your diary, or you're still worried if... are there still gaps in your diary?
Yeah, I like gaps. Okay. I do take gaps. I'm writing a sitcom right now for Netflix called The Duchess, and that will be out sometime next year.
What's it about? Can you tell us?
It's
cool.
So that's giving me a lot of time at home to write it all by myself. Do you know in America they have writers' rooms? And then here, they just stick you in a closet.
Are you doing it on your own?
Yeah, and you just stare at a wall.
Gosh.
It's about a disruptive mom in North London who's from Canada, and her name is Katherine.
No.
Yeah. So it is about me, but then again, everyone around me is fictional. So it's about a unique shape of a family, and this woman wants to grow her family in a unique way without perhaps committing to
Yes.
a man.
You have said yourself that you would like to have not just so that you can breastfeed on Mop the Week, but
I
for
will
slightly.
do that.
I know you would do. I don't doubt it for a minute. But there are deeper impulses at play here,
Yeah.
not just that one.
I loved having Violet. I think no one gets to the end of their life and says, "Oh, I wish I'd had fewer children."
Stanley Johnson?
Still, no. He
No,
thinks
no,
they're killing it.
You're absolutely right.
Rachel's nice, though.
Rachel's
isn't
lovely.
she?
Joe's nice as well. I'm sure they're all nice, except the one that's probably going to be Prime Minister, possibly by the time this goes out. Stranger things have happened.
Stanley would be very proud of him, especially.
Of course he will. Of course he will. So,
But she is disruptive. So she's a bad person, but she's a good mother. Is
okay.
the best
But
way that
here's
I
the
can put
thing,
it.
Catherine. You've got your Netflix special
Yeah.
for Glitter Room, and Netflix are paying you to write a sitcom.
Yes.
And you had you 6 months at the Garrick. How long were you in the West End for?
Oh, that was about 2 months.
Oh, was it? Because I'm on the studio over the road, so I walked past you.
see something.
And that was at the end of a tour, and it got extended. That's the
The
point.
tour was about a year.
Yeah,
or something,
and yet, when I said to you, surely you feel as if you've made it in some sense, you feel as if you're over the line, you said no. Doesn't get much better than this, does it? I mean, that's obviously one hopes that The Duchess is a massive smash hit, and
I
then
hope so.
pretty much every
There's a sexy priest. No, I hope it's
pieces
okay.
to camera, little aside, straight down the barrel.
I don't know. I think my work is subjective, so
Yes.
I could just fall out of favor anytime.
Okay, when did you first start thinking of yourself as successful?
I have always thought I was successful.
Even when
I moved to Toronto and went to university, I lived in a condo with my friends.
you know that's not what I meant.
I
When did
thought
you?
that was cool. No, I have self-esteem that's too high.
No, it can't be too high.
No, it
'cause
is. I've always thought I was like
All right, when did you first think of yourself as a successful comedian?
the first time I did stand up. Genuinely, I really
Just
high
killed it.
self-esteem.
I'm the greatest.
I'm like, I'm doing great. I just feel
Sure. I'm going to find this question. I'm going to get it right at the end. When did the world, in your opinion, start treating you like a successful comedian? What are the milestones on the Katherine Ryan story? What are the ones where you go, well, that was significant?
okay. Well, when they bullied me, I thought I was famous. And then when I moved to Toronto to go to university, I thought I was killing it. When I got a job at Hooters, I thought I was a supermodel. And
Okay.
then when I started doing stand-up, even for the first time, I thought I was amazing. And then when I did television for the first time, I thought that was fun and it was great. And I was so lucky to be doing it. And then when people came to see me on purpose for the first time and I wasn't part of a mixed bill, then I had so much gratitude and I'd take pictures of them and I thought I was killing it. Like every day of my life, I genuinely mean it. I feel like super happy and lucky to be alive and like that life couldn't be better. I'm like so happy with things
Disgusting.
going. I know. But yeah, I don't know what to tell you. Like I could
But this is the mystery then for me is because it's a showing off thing that you do.
yeah.
And showing off normally involves a desperation, a desire for validation or a desire for
Yeah.
approval. And this entire conversation has been devoid of any sense from the words coming out of your mouth that you've ever felt any desire for approval or validation. You've never needed it. You've never sought it. And yet you've ended up in a profession that is, for many people, defined by it.
Oh no, I do like approval.
But I didn't say like. I said desire or need.
Well, I must desire and need it then.
You think?
Yeah.
But you're
Not
just easily
from-
satisfied when you
Yeah.
felt that Hooters was giving you that sense of or doing your early
Right.
stuff. You got enough validation to feed you, to fill you.
I'm kind of like a dog. Do you know? I don't need it from everyone. I think it's unreasonable to expect that everyone will like you, but when I get any validation from anyone, then
Yes.
I like that.
And how do you deal with criticism? Because you mentioned a while ago that you're divisive, that you know the audiences either take to you or don't take to you. How do you deal with the ones that don't? How do you deal with bad reviews? Do you ever have bad reviews? So how do you deal with those?
I mean, I think that if the criticism were overpowering, if everyone disliked something,
Yeah.
I think that would really hurt my feelings. If people that I respected really didn't like me, like I feel nervous that you came to my show at the Garrick. I'm a bit like, oh God, I care what you think. But
We
the
loved
man
it.
in the third row shaking his head because he doesn't agree with the London Gay Men's Chorus opening for me and he's a homophobe. I don't care about him.
Okay.
I think that I've had some friends come, husbands of friends,
Yes.
so like by proxy friends.
Yeah.
I didn't marry them, but they come and they say like, oh, if they don't get it, if they go, oh, your show it really sounds like you hate men, like you need to lighten that up. That sort of hurts my feelings a bit because I think, oh, you're my friend, and do I project that? You know, so I do take criticism, and sometimes, you know,
Yes.
I dislike that, but
it's the value that you place upon the person that is criticising that
I think so.
more than the nature of the criticism.
I definitely hate to be in trouble or to have wronged someone or disappointed someone that I respect.
You are at great pains. That's why with the privacy, that's the astonishing tightrope you walk between putting it all out there, but somehow in a way that doesn't compromise anybody else who's involved in where your life has been and where it is now.
Well, that only has to do with my daughter, really.
Yes.
I wouldn't want to compromise her situation.
And yet she is a big part of the show.
The parts about her that she and I both would feel comfortable sharing are,
Okay, and how do you make that decision? Do you talk to her about it? Because she's very young. She's possibly, some might say, she's too young to be party to that kind of negotiation.
Well, I always talk about Violet in a really positive way when I say, oh, my
sort
daughter.
of. I mean, there's some. I mean, actually, maybe this is because you're Canadian and I went to private school, but you talk about her as being a typical English private school.
Well, she goes to state school.
Well, private school's the wrong phrase, but posh. You talk about her as being quite...
But I think that's less about her and more about my reaction to having a British child. Because to me...
So it's like you've got Mary Poppins in the kitchen.
Yeah, to me, she sounds very like, oh, Mommy, let's do this. And I'm like...
that's it,
what's
exactly.
Funny
Yes,
to me
I got that
is
wrong.
the
Yes,
incongruence.
of course.
But I do love her so much, so I don't worry that I'm ever slagging her off. Just
and you couldn't anyway. I mean, but what happens if you and her have... Well, it's too far down the line, but when she's a teenager... and you have epic rows and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I sense you wouldn't dream of taking that on stage.
Not unless it was squashed and it was to do with me. I'm always the fall guy, I think. And also, you know, Kevin Hart has material about his children that I think... Ooh.
I'd ask men this as well. I'm
not, no criticism of you, but he has something about his child that I think is quite private.
Yeah, okay.
But that's their family business. But, you know, I do definitely have a line.
And that line is just...
I don't know. It's somewhere. I wouldn't talk about, you know, kids like masturbating or anything as an example.
There was when I had one of those consultants...
Such the example that I
Yeah, of course not. But oddly, because you've mentioned periods, there was... Back in the day when I started out, there was a radio consultant that they brought in to try and humanise us. And one of her clients had talked about her teenage daughter starting her periods on air. Yeah. And the daughter had gone absolutely to pieces.
And this is Kevin Hart's material too.
Right, okay. And the justification that this consultant offered up was, which I found very odd at the time, and possibly find even odder now, was that this is what pays our bills. You don't get to...
Well, we've had that conversation, my daughter and me, but about my material. So Violet really doesn't like the idea that people are having sex.
No.
That's really disgusting to her because they've just learned about it in school. And I didn't tell her about it. We're so open about so many things. And I did not have a conversation with her about sex, which I know is bad. I'm glad they teach it in schools.
Yes.
I haven't admitted to having sex.
She could probably join the dots, though.
No,
in
because
context of her own existence.
No, because she's been to a fertility clinic with me.
Yeah.
She knows about, you know, a lot of her friends have lesbian parents. She knows about IVF. And I just can't afford to lose her respect, so I didn't tell her I had sex. But she said, in the Duchess, Mummy, are you going, because she was watching Catastrophe and they had sex. And she says, will you be having sex in the Duchess? And I said, yeah, and there's this one part in the car where I show my tits as well. She was like... You can't do that, Mum. You can't. And I was like, well, I can.
I kind of have to. Well, you don't have to.
Get a job if you don't like it. But when she starts
but that's your choices about your life. She just doesn't want at school everyone to have seen her mum's tits.
But they will see them.
Yes.
And not in the Duchess, but on the school run. Because I wear a dressing gown that is not secure on a windy day. And I won't apologize for that.
No. So... And I sense I already know the answer to this question then, is that you have an instinctive sense of where your lines are and Violet kind of is part of those lines.
I suppose, and I hope I don't get it wrong. I always am. I really think a lot about, and that takes a long time to find that nuance. I really don't want to divulge anything about people who have touched me in my life because I do think they're entitled to their own privacy.
And how, nearly at the end, but we haven't touched on any low points or negative points, even when you were facing single motherhood of sorts, or you seem to have seen the positives in it. You said, I know you say it in your act,
Yeah.
and you've said it today, that was when you really did prioritize what mattered and what didn't matter. But some, I mean, you get the kind of people that you might rile, albeit that they might have ended up at your shows by accident. They're going to be quite nasty people. They're going to be quite misogynistic people. They're going to be quite old-fashioned. Do you ever get scared? Do you ever get low, actually, I would ask, after having spent 40 minutes with you?
I'd never get low.
Do you not? That's
No.
not normal, is it?
I really don't. If I've been drinking,
Yes.
and I don't like to drink very much because I get wildly hungover because I have lupus.
Right.
That's low, systemic lupus.
Yes.
Anything in that? You like that?
No, I'm not looking for, like,
Okay.
warts and all. Right. So I'm just wondering,
I
genuinely.
had cancer one time.
No, that's not what I'm talking
Okay,
about.
so
I'm just talking about
When I get a little bit hungover, then
Yeah.
sometimes I get like a general sense of like brief malaise.
But that's it. And you would never tailor your... I can know the answer to this already. You'd never tailor your act for fear of causing offence. You'd go with it if you liked it and you thought it was appropriate.
Well, I think if you can stand behind something that you say. I had a joke where I said, I've spent so long wanting to look like one of the Kardashians, I don't even care, it's the dad. And then people have said that was transphobic.
Yeah, but they don't know. They couldn't even explain why, could they?
Yeah,
That's
and
the
I
thing.
know
You
it's
get a
not
lot
transphobic.
of- yeah, precisely.
Because Caitlyn Jenner is a woman, but she is their dad. They call her dad.
Yes.
So I do think about that with my Netflix special coming out. That's more international. I have things in there that I didn't even think would be relevant now. I worried
Yes.
that it wouldn't be stuff about sexual assault,
Yeah.
stuff about
It's
even
more
like
relevant
O.J.
now.
Simpson has a Twitter account now, and I talk about him. Celine
Yeah.
Dion, I talk about
Yeah.
Celine Dion's husband, and I really don't want to get in trouble with Celine Dion. So I do have like a conscience, and I do worry a little bit.
Sure.
But overall, James, the thing is, I used to work at Hooters, and that is what I think I need to drive home, is that I'm so lucky. I just feel really lucky all the time. So I just try to do my best. And maybe I was supposed to like die or something, because I just feel happy.
Good.
every
It's
day.
refreshing. I'm not suggesting that I don't believe you or that you should be sort of carrying a cross around all day or anything like that. I saw, as I mentioned, I saw the show at the Garrick last year. When I watched the Netflix special, it's never identical every night, is it? But is it essentially the stage show brought to Netflix?
Yes.
In which case I can happily and highly recommend it. The Duchess is next. And then, and
I'm writing a new show to
you
do
are
a new tour.
okay. So no prospect of the road running out anytime soon.
You never know. I could upset someone.
Who do you show the Duchess to?
Who did I show it to?
Who do you show it to when you're ready to start filming? Does anyone have do they send it back to you? Do you?
Yes. So I'm doing it with Clerkenwell Productions.
Okay.
I learned, Clerkenwell. It looks like Clerkenwell.
Yeah.
Is it true that the gentry would pronounce things differently so that if you were poor and you
Yeah.
read it and said Clerkenwell, they'd be
I
like,
don't
no,
know.
it's Clerkenwell.
I don't know if Clerkenwell's a very good example of that.
Like the neighborhood.
Necessary? No, I don't think Clerkenwell was one of the code words.
No?
The best ones are words like Beecham Square is spelled Beauchamp, so you'd never know that. You know that word Beauchamp,
Yeah.
Beauchamp,
French. Yeah.
but they pronounce it Beecham.
Oh my gosh.
Or what's the favourite one? But yes, but I don't know if Clerkenwell is necessarily an example of the gentry trying to alienate the working classes.
Okay. Well,
But it might be. Maybe it is. I don't know. I've really enjoyed that, Katherine Ryan. Thank you so much. No,
Thank you
thank
for
you.
today.